No agenda, no takes, and no rules. Social Sessions with Mike Gannotti. And we are back after our session one. This is session two of the Social Sessions. Hi, I'm Mike Gannotti. And today I am joined by Mr. SharePoint himself, Joel Oleson. Joel?
Hey, it's great to be here. It's good to be with my friend Michael.
So, Joel, for those out there who don't really know you, tell a little bit about yourself and what you're up to these days apart from tech at home, as you're sheltering in place with your family.
Sure. So I moved to Oceanside, California, about 5 years ago.
You see the ocean a lot.
I do. I'm 7 miles from the ocean. I've actually walked from my house to the ocean. What's kind of interesting is there's a crater, as in like a dormant volcano, between my house and the ocean.
And so you're sure it's dormant.
Yeah. So there's some great trails between here and the ocean.
Nice. So what are you up to these days? I mean, well, first of all, how's your family doing with everything?
Family's doing well. I've got 2 college-age kids. They're actually both at home right now. Gotcha. And I've got an 11-year-old. 2 of the 3 of them have school that's happening virtually. So even right now, as I'm talking to you, my 11-year-old is on the kitchen table talking to his class, and my one who goes to San Francisco State, who's here, he's got a mixed mash of his college classes that are going on throughout the day as well.
Very cool.
And my wife's actually been working on masks, so she's been sewing and
nice.
Yeah, so
nice.
I think that is great to be able to kind of help with that as well.
Yeah. Well, and especially, we were on my last social session, we were talking about having a sense of, finding something to do where you're actually accomplishing something, give yourself a sense of satisfaction, accomplishment, and purpose, right? So we're not just, it's easy to get, stuck and kind of mired in everything, and then you become emotionally, overly focused on the negative. And
it's very easy to turn inward, it's very easy to say, why is all this happening to me? And it helps absolutely if we can look outside. I was actually just talking to a friend yesterday on the phone who I haven't talked to in 10 years. His mother had died, and we're catching up with friends we haven't talked to in a long time. And I think that's actually, the relationships are so important right now that we do reach out. I did my first family call on Teams yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, we actually got everybody on, but maybe you would or wouldn't be surprised how many each person was like, can I see everybody?
Yeah.
Everybody wants, and I'm like, well, it's a few weeks out or a couple weeks out. By the end of the month, you should have the Brady Bunch mode or the 3x3.
Sure.
And my family is actually kind of Brady Bunch like. There's 3 boys and 3 girls in my parents' family, and that's who we chatted with last night.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's important, taking that time to reach out, even if it's like virtual happy hours, virtual dinners. It's all good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Joel, I always tell people I'm an old man and I've been around. You're not as old as me, but when it comes to the world of Microsoft collaboration, like myself, in fact, you're more so, you are older than dirt. So tell us about some of that and how you got to where you're at.
Yeah. Let me tell you the fast shortcut story. I do feel like it almost kind of built up this momentum. It was in college way back in the 90s where I was at school and I came across the internet, and it blew my mind. And I pivoted my focus in a big way on the internet at that point. I came up with pizzatoyou.com You know, I want to help bring businesses to the internet. And then, so that was even a side project while I was in college, focused on psychology. Talk about pivots.
Yeah.
And then I just got seriously into computers, and number of jobs later, I end up in Seattle working for a Netscape Oracle Sun reseller, where I was working on doing web development as a programmer, they called me. And I was learned Oracle, doing Oracle database design, and doing Perl, and a little bit of Java. At least our company was doing Java. I was kind of doing the prototyping and kind of laying things out, and then they would build the apps.
Yep.
And that, it was like a year later that I was working at Microsoft at Slate.com, the online web magazine. And it was actually there that I learned IIS and SQL 6.5. I was doing, NT4. Yep. Super exciting times. And it was also there that it was, what was it called? The index server.
Oh, SQL. Well, no, we had, not SQL. And it was, I'm blanking because I used that one.
Yes, site server. Site server.
Yes.
So I was site server 1998, right? Yep. And I was helping Slate, who actually had, this was Michael Kinsley days. I was a contractor at Microsoft. That was actually the first time I met Bill Gates, who has been my hero ever since. I mean, he was cool back then, but it was, it was like, I got an email from Bill when Slate was having an issue. I framed the email. I was so just excited about it. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so it was from there, it was the internet boom, and I wanted to be in a .com. I left and joined the Nextlink, where I would do Cold Fusion and ASP, and I was doing web infrastructure. So I was doing iPlanet and Netscape Enterprise Server, Commerce Server, a lot of those early, in fact, it was like Tomcat. Anyway, there was a bunch of these, like,
that forever.
Yeah, a bunch of web technologies. In fact, talk about collaboration. I was on the notes team as the guy who's doing IIS. So when they went from notes to Domino, I helped the Domino guys set up their IIS servers for them, and set up my first SQL cluster. And it was so exciting when SQL 7 came out. It was so much better than 6.5. And all that kind of prepared me for when I joined up with Microsoft in December of 2000, after the big 2000 scare. Anyway, but basically, here I was interviewing with Microsoft, and they're like, we've got these web technologies that we really, none of our customers are using yet, but the product teams have just racked some servers in the data center, and we want to put Tahoe, an Office web server, and with your web background, we want you to be our collaboration guy on this newly formed messaging and collaboration team in Microsoft IT.
Those were crazy fun days.
Yeah. And wow. I remember one of the first projects was, help us figure out how many sites we can put on a server. And it's like, we still don't know the answer to that. How many sites can a server hold? I don't know, Yeah, I was the one who kept pushing it, saying, hey, you can do a lot, It's like, sure. Here's a bunch of technology, here's how you can tweak IIS to support more web apps, and here's how you can tweak this and tweak that. I was a big proponent of self-service inside of Microsoft.
Right.
Because the funny thing people don't realize is, in IT, it wasn't an army of a big SharePoint team. It was, there's an engineer, and there's an ops guy, and then there's a service manager, And that was it. Like there maybe a PM that we borrowed for a while getting it out, but that was it. And that first deployment was like 20 locations, just trying to get SharePoint everywhere. And I was like, no, we don't want to go everywhere. We actually need to consolidate these. They don't need to be everywhere exchanges. We can consolidate. And so by V2, we had it in kind of regional data centers, and then ultimately kind of bringing things closer and closer. And then with the cloud as well, I was the guy in IT who was like, hey, can we do this for customers? The managed services, BPOS-D. Trying
Which
to
has become
figure out Energizer.
Now we're at Microsoft 365.
How about that? I love it. I think it's evolved in such a great way. I think it is. Microsoft's made a lot of the right decisions along the way. Absolutely.
So, as I look at a lot of what you've been up to over the years, and I think it's really apropos. I mean, when we talk about, you started out when you did all these web things, came to Microsoft and your SharePoint, which was all about taking I always call it the mojo out of the hands of IT and empowering users to come together, collaborate. You then started doing a lot with community. Did some, before we get into some of the stuff around now, I just got to highlight and get you to talk briefly about it. But, you got heavily vested in community and and parlaying that into your love of travel, which has led to some interesting, not only SharePoint Saturdays, but just community kind of things. Like I've seen pictures of you laying in Antarctica with penguins, scaling Mount Kilimanjaro, going all over. What have you been up to? I mean, just tell us briefly about what you've been up to with community over the years, and then what are you doing now?
Well, I think there's a really interesting inflection point. While I was at Microsoft, it was very focused on the big conferences. It was Tech Ed at the time, and there was the Tech Readies and so on. Every once in a while, there'd be a regional conference where they would request us to go and speak. But for the most part, it was only the big places, only the people who had money spending on software. And traveling, I just had this passion for it. I couldn't get enough of it. And then it was, I want to reach the people that aren't being reached. So that's where Sharing the Point came from, was here's a bunch of other speakers where we can actually take our show on the road. We don't need all these people in Argentina and Uruguay, and those people will never make it to a Tech Ed. There was a Tech Ed in Brazil I did, which was fantastic, but it still has never been in Argentina, has never been in Chile. And what I noticed and really fell in love with was there's a Latin American community, and finding these Latin American MVPs who are basically, hey, we have this seminario SharePoint symposio, and they invited me to speak in Mexico City, then it was in Costa Rica, and then it was in Colombia, and I was like meeting all these people. We've got authors who are writing about SharePoint in Spanish, and those titles are not even available in English. We're making these assumptions that it's kind of top down and goes like this. No. There's actually mini pyramids of the SharePoint community. And so it was my interest to kind of, let me break into the Russian speaking community. Let me break into this French speaking community. Let me break into the Latin American, even though I don't speak those other languages, they can translate me, or a lot of the times in some of these cultures, they speak enough English that I can do my session, no problem. And so I met some fantastic people who helped me extend it. But as an example, that Antarctica trip, that was, what an epic trip. That was Argentina, Chile, Uruguay, and Antarctica. And we had Dan Holm, Ricardo, who from the Latin American community, who helped us organize this, Michael and Paul. It was really, really solid group of speakers, and Mark Miller, I don't think you mentioned him.
Mark,
the end user SharePoint stuff. And speaking at these conferences and then really connecting with the community. And what I felt was it was very humbling to them for them to see us come and visit them.
Sure.
And man, like Antarctica was a dream come true. I kind of saw this as, is there a way we can work with sponsors to be able to pull off something like that? You know, people may think, oh, they paid for our whole trip. That's not the case. We ended up paying. It was pretty much 50-50. They may have helped us charter that flight, but we pretty much paid for, you know, all of our expenses and so on for the most of what happened throughout that trip. But I still thank AvePoint and FP Web for helping us pull that off. Like, it was so epic. So
yeah, it was. So, you know, fast forward now, we're in the world of the cloud, and today, tell us, who are you working for? What are you doing? And how are you still working with community?
Yeah. So I am a director at Perficient, which has 37. Partner. Yeah, they're big. They're NASDAQ stock, PRFT. You know, they're publicly traded. I actually bought a bunch of stock because it went down with the craziness in the market. But it's a great company. Microsoft, they've brought 5 million people to the cloud. They're focused on digital transformation. And my role in the business is basically helping the delivery team with strategy, connecting with Microsoft, being part of these charter content services, as an example.
Sure.
Love getting my hands on working with Project Cortex, and oh man, that's one of the ones I'm super excited about. I hope that comes back in conversation. But yeah, it's that's where I work. There's an office in Irvine, but I've been working from home, obviously. Typically I'm working from home 4 out of the 5 days anyway, doing events and
that's
speaking.
The beauty of the cloud, right?
Absolutely.
Anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
Cool. So what about some of the community stuff you're up to these days?
Yes. All right. So one of the cool things I've been able to work out with my management is I have my Joel 365 brand.
Yep.
You know, pivoting from SharePoint Joel, Collab Show, Joel 365, I've kind of got my different properties and brands. But anyway, I've been doing some infographics, both for Perficient, but also in the community, where I've been helping out some vendors who, I think one of the biggest challenges in our space, people have built products solving problems that everybody has. And the vendor's ability to reach the customers who have those problems, it's tough. You know, it's a very competitive space. Microsoft would be very quick to say it's a very rich ecosystem. We love our partners. There's those big partner conferences and so on. But man, most partners don't have budgets to be able to do that much to be able to reach the community. So I try and do a lot of let me get on a webinar and educate and have somebody be able to sponsor it where they can pitch their product at the end. And that's actually something I've been doing for probably the last at least 5 to 10 years.
No, I think that's great, because I know, like myself, I hear all the time, you know, LinkedIn is one of those places where people, they want to make a professional contact to, hey, get exposure for their stuff. And, you know, it's a need people have. I mean, people are doing great stuff, but to get their voices heard, it's a tough thing out there.
So let me tell you about an event coming up.
Yeah.
Microsoft 365 virtual marathon.
I've seen a little bit about this on Twitter popping up.
Yes. So
tell us about the event and how people can get there.
Yeah, so m365virtualmarathon.com. Basically, this started from me and a few buddies who are doing the Orange County SharePoint Saturday, which is a place where it hasn't been yet. It basically it didn't happen, and it was going to be canceled. And I was like, hey, let's do this virtual. And it's like, well, if we're going to do it virtual, the whole world can come. Well, if the whole world can come, let's scale it up. Let's do it. Let's be the one who answers the call. And I was on some mini virtual summits and team summits, and there's so much built up demand. People really, really want to learn. And so I was like, well, let me reach out to Bill Bear. Let me reach out to John Levesque. Hey, we've got so much momentum. We should reach out to Jeff Teeper, who is our keynote. Yeah. Top guy. Yeah, definitely the godfather here. If somebody's been doing SharePoint longer than me, it's Jeff Teeper.
He will make you an offer you can't refuse, huh?
Yeah, so my plan was I want hundreds of sessions. I really want to reach all these communities. I want this to truly be global. And I've been what's interesting is in the last week, I probably spent 2 or 3 hours with the Japanese saying, hey, Japanese Microsoft, hey, Japanese MVPs, this is truly a global event. We want you guys to embrace it. And they have. Like, there's going to be an amazing Japanese track. And I've been doing the same thing with the Latin American community. Now we have nearly 20 Spanish-speaking sessions in the virtual marathon.
Wow.
And we have 24 plus submitted French-speaking sessions in the virtual marathon.
See, now that's all. I mean, that to me, when I hear like going back to SharePoint and thinking of a shared, and now when we're talking about collab, that's collab, right?
Yeah.
That's worldwide, bringing everybody in.
Yeah. So I'm reaching out to contacts that I haven't talked to in 10, 12, 15 years. I'm reaching out to the guy in Uzbekistan saying, hey, you want to submit? Hey, you want to volunteer? Help me run this global event. And it's actually 36 hours. It goes all the way around the globe, twice for the US time zone, so that we can have all these extra keynotes. You know, that's how I see it, is like, we want more keynotes, more content. It's all free.
Yeah. You know, as it revolving kind of, you know, over that cycle of time, getting
everybody in your time. So like the Japanese were like, how are we going to pull this off? It's like, do the sessions when it makes sense to you. You know, you don't have to do 24 hours of sessions. We can give you 2 tracks of 8 or 3 tracks if you want to fill them. You know, that's the great thing. What this started here was, how many live team sessions can you do concurrently? And we figured out the number was 15. We're like, 15 across 36 hours. That's more than 300 sessions. All right, let's see if we can do 300 sessions.
Can we saturate it? That's cool. No, that is awesome. And again, so we don't forget, we're going to have the link with the post down below here. But what's that URL for that?
m36virtualmarathon.com.
One word.com.
That's right. And in fact, we partnered up with SPC. So SharePoint conference was postponed. Virtual marathon, we've actually partnered up with Jackie and Lyman and the whole team. So what's great is they're helping us with sponsors. And when I mention sponsors, what's kind of cool here is we made a deal with them to where we can give it back to the community. You know, on our side, we don't need to make any money. This is for the community. So we're actually going to donate. We're starting with at least 10% of what we generate, and we're actually going to give it back. And I've really been racking my brain how to do this, but we're going to try and give it back to the families of the victims in our community who are affected by COVID-19.
Yeah, very cool. No, very nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just hearing how you're doing that. It's exciting. I mean, and I think, you know, if you think about this post-pandemic world, right, as things starting to open up again, you know, like you've put together something that never could have happened physical, never would have serviced people, physical locality. That to me is a model. Yeah.
And I'm actually thinking that as well now. Like, this has gone so global. We have 424 sessions as of this morning submitted, and we have a week left.
You got to cut sessions.
I wasn't thinking I was going to have to cut. Like, my intention was to let everybody who wants to speak.
Maybe it should be 48 hours. You'll be like the show, 48 hours.
We'll add another tenant. Is what I'm thinking.
That's awesome. So,
Yeah.
you know, moving beyond like some of that piece, you were talking
Yep.
about like some infographics and things you're doing. Is this kind of some of, as you talk about positioning and your work with Perficient? I know you had some info, like you were saying, some infographics,
Yeah,
some other
yeah.
things. You want to share some of that and talk about
Yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen. So let me start with, since we're on this screen, this is my YouTube channel. One of the little projects I've been doing behind the scenes, and I'm sure we'll get to this, is my traveling epic with Joel 365 brand. It's like,
I'm like, you know, they have Destinations Unknown and all these shows.
Yes, absolutely.
Joel Traveling Epic.
Yeah, and it's like, so I started this series during the COVID-19 stuff, where I'm trying to pick top 10 destinations to dream about. And I just finished episode 2. So episode 1 was all about Antarctica and the baby penguins that are pecking my eyes and jumping on my face. And then episode
I'm
2
looking at the one,
is,
that's the one down there where it says baby penguin meets human first time.
Yes.
That was the last picture I saw of you with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see 3.6 million views and 3.3 million views.
Dude.
Like, yeah, like this.
I hope you're doing ads.
Yeah.
That's the revenue stream right there.
You know, this, like last month, I don't mind being a little bit transparent. I made $200 on my YouTube channel. It helps pay for the Fiverr work to get some logos done. It's enough incentive to keep going. You know, I think this is fun. It's a hobby. But you can see the second episode I'm doing is the Papua New Guinea top 10 dream destinations. I just did that one last night. But I just love the tribal encounters, you know, like you can see the lip puck here.
Yep.
I took my kids on that trip to Ethiopia. What a life transforming kind of experience that was.
Oh, I'm sure.
And even this tribe here in the Philippines, they'd only emerged from the forest 7 years prior to when I visited them. They've been basically connected with land, you know, and the reason they told us the reason they came out of the forest and tried to somewhat integrate with society was for the rice. Like, wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
It was about food, you know.
Very cool. Well, hey, Maslow's triangle, basic need.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, lots of fun stuff in here. I'm going to give you the, here we go. So this is a little infographic I put together on Teams. And basically, when Microsoft announced they were going to retire Skype and move to Teams, there's so many people that they think that Skype is like Teams, that it was a guy on my team who was talking about, it was Ron on my team, who was talking about this idea of an iceberg and how it's like, yes, definitely the iceberg analogy. There's so much that's below the water when it comes to Teams.
Yeah.
That I was like, I really want to build a visual around that. And then as well, it's like the migration from Skype to Teams is probably one of the most crazy things. It's not like migrating data from a file share into SharePoint where it's like, okay, now no longer exists. There's all these different coexistence modes, and I think people get really confused.
Yes.
And especially islands. Islands sounds like such a great thing where it's like, oh, people can use the tool they choose. Isn't that such a great thing? It's the default, but it's actually the worst thing you can do, and you don't want to leave your users in islands mode.
No.
So when I first built this, I tried to leave islands mode off, but you'll notice in my migration approaches, and this used to say recommended approaches, but essentially it's like, yeah, you can take your people directly to Teams, or you can do minimal coexistence or the multi-step, but the intention here is get your users to Teams.
Yeah, and off Skype, get them out.
Off of Skype, especially with these horrible coexistence modes. Like it's a bad experience as a user. Stuff pops up in Skype from some users, and sometimes it pops up in Teams. and you know, it's awful for being able to keep track of things, for sure.
Absolutely.
Actually, you can see a little reference here to another community thing I did back at Ignite. I really felt like another kind of community conversation that was happening was Teams or SharePoint. And it's like, no, 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 it's not Teams or SharePoint. It's Teams and SharePoint.
There is no Teams without SharePoint.
Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely. And that was driving me crazy. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to put together a wedding.
I just saw the wedding rings there.
Yes, yes. I need a wedding for Teams. And what you may not know is I out of my own pocket, I hired a bagpiper to come to the wedding because I wanted it to be an epic event, not just, you know.
So is this like the sequel to the funeral that was had for InfoPath?
Absolutely. You know, it's like weddings and funerals, you know, it's like, let's personify these products and help people to, in their minds, marry Teams and SharePoint. And let's put InfoPath in the grave. And if InfoPath is in the grave, that means Microsoft's going to address it, right? It took years for Microsoft to fully address that. And so when we were going around the expo hall moaning and saying, oh, InfoPath is dead, that was as much as a communication to the community that InfoPath was dead as it was to the product team to say, help us put InfoPath in the grave, give us a good answer. And
I can tell you,
I think it
in
worked.
the field, I had a number of customers who, it was great because I was telling customers, you know, they were like, well, do we do InfoPath? And I was saying, well, let me tell you my own 2 cents. If I send an email to the InfoPath team, I've sent it down a dark hole from which it will never return. Yeah. And then when you guys did that, when you had that whole thing, I had people, oh yeah, so it's really dead. I was like, yes, it really.
Yeah, in fact, there's a funeral. Check it out.
Saying, it's dead. Move on.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So the people may think, oh, those are stunts, or those are little antics, or Joel's crazy. But I feel like, no, those are collected community conscience projects where if I can help share a message and get people in the community on board with doing it. We had 500 people who showed up at the wedding. Like, it was the biggest party that week at Ignite, as far as, you know, at least community parties go.
Cool.
Yeah, it was
a wedding. What better way to celebrate, right?
Yeah, and guess what? InfoPath actually showed up in zombie form at the wedding.
That's cool.
So yeah, we gotta keep that. In fact, what's funny is Power Apps did a double tap, shot the InfoPath zombie, and put it down.
Put it down. There we go.
Put it down. Yeah, we have to acknowledge that it's dead, and Power Apps and Power Automate, the whole Power Platform. Wow, what a great community that is.
Yeah, it is. And it's one that's rapidly evolving, rapidly growing, and the capabilities moving well beyond what traditionally you were able to do. So question though, you know, so you work for Perficient and stuff. What, you know, these days do you see with Perficient and things that you're doing there that are, oops, and Joel has left the house. I think we clicked the wrong button, but he'll be right back. So we'll just keep talking. Here he comes.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
That was my bad. I was stopping sharing screen.
I won't tell you the things I said about you then. No. So, but you know, if you think about like today, you know, just kind of pull it together with Perficient and what really top of mind, what are the kind of things that you're seeing from a Perficient point of view that, you know, either keep you up at night or that you see keeping your customers up at night, and that you're solving for things that you're trying to help with that are really salient.
Yeah. Well, it's absolutely about digital transformation.
Yeah.
Our world is really, there's the way you're doing business and there's the way you could be doing business. So a lot of that is transforming your business, and whether it's the move to the cloud,
or whether it's the just digitizing a lot of processes that aren't, and even just, you know, brushing off some of the processes you've got and finding that there's a better way. I brought up earlier this whole idea of Project Cortex.
Yeah.
How great is it to build a partnership between AI and humans? Humans are awful at tagging documents. And here's this hope that we can actually have a solid knowledge network where we can actually tie our business data and these together with topics and these ontologies and leverage the power of AI to actually do the analysis and build these ontologies based on our taxonomies or based on what it discovers through reasoning over how our people are using this data.
Yeah.
Man, I'm very pro AI. Let's let the machines help us figure this out. And I do think this is going to be, as far as taking AI technologies and bringing them into the business and finding ways of doing it, I think this is a monumental, massive stake in the ground where AI has found a way to solve not just, hey, it does extraction over here, or it's recognizing objects and pictures. It's taking all of these AI techniques and putting them into a single product, and it's super exciting.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's commoditizing AI. It's cool.
Going back to, you know, we both in our SharePoint days, and you hit the nail on the head. People don't like to tag, and they don't. They just don't. And I hear it all the time from folks. How do we get them to do this? And we have all this that we want them to do. And I'm like, they're never going to do it. No. They're going to rebel. So being able, that's what to me is exciting, bringing the power of all that kind of tagging and recognition and what you can do with that, but taking the onus off of folks who wouldn't do it anyways.
Yes.
Bringing it in. Yeah.
And in fact, I would say there was a vision that was laid out back when we moved SharePoint to SharePoint Online, and I was there. I can tell you, there was this vision of how can Exchange be better when SharePoint and Active Directory and Link are all there as well. And we thought, you know what? We can't even tell you what it's going to be. But guess what? Here we have a platform that goes across email, SharePoint, Teams, Yammer, all that stuff. It's the most horizontal product that then says, you know what? We're not going to even stop there. Connect to whatever other data sources you want to. Connect to the Power Platform and pull in hundreds of other stuff. Use our partners and pull in hundreds of all your other IBM and, you know, whatever other repositories, open text and blah, 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 all that stuff, file nets, bring all that world in and now let AI do its job. Like, whoa, what's the power? What's going to happen? I mean, this could change our world. It changes collaboration, changes knowledge management. This is one of those things where there's an epic step that we can step up here. And it's like, I'm excited to see what happens when you put all these technologies together. Now that we've got it, this is a maturity step that we can take. Yeah. Teams was the first one. And now we're saying, wow, another step in such a short period of time.
Yeah, I look at, like, when I look at the move to Teams, to me, that's like the evolution of what we were doing, you know, team sites and all. It's really evolutionary. But when I look at Cortex, that's one of those revolutionary steps. It's big. I mean, because then think of all the evolutions that'll happen on top of that today not been possible.
Right. This is basically going to Microsoft Research and saying, hey guys, what have you been working on in the AI space?
Yeah.
Whoa, it's unloading the flood of all this AI technology. And let's put those robots to work for us. I mean, and let's put the power in the hands of the end users in the business. You know, all this is going to become available. It's exciting. It's very transformative.
It is. Very exciting times. So any last things you want to share?
So you were asking, what have I done recently?
Yeah.
So my last kind of interesting trip, I was speaking at SharePoint Saturday in Istanbul. And I visited Göbekli Tepe, which is the oldest human man site that has these stones. So you could say this was actually where man settled down. They went from a nomadic society to being an agrarian society. And they actually, like, the goats and the sheep weren't even, they weren't domesticated. So basically, this is the valley, this is the area where all that happened. One of the most exciting kind of experiences there, and it's actually fairly close to the Syrian border, which leads into, I visited Syria on that last trip.
Did you?
Talk about crazy, epic destinations. Went to Damascus.
Okay.
And visited, there's some Greek ruins, like Temple of Jupiter there in Damascus and downtown, the old city. And right next to that's one of the oldest mosques that actually says they have John the Baptist's head in a shrine.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, Paul the Apostle like preached in those streets and all that.
Yeah,
oh man, it was super exciting, very interesting. And it was actually somebody else in the community, Mike Mandriani, who's originally Lebanese. We stayed with his family and had this amazing meal. You know, it's these connections with the community that are so rich. You know, there's no price to being able to sit down with your friend's family and just it's awesome. I mean, that trip to Syria was insane. It was crazy, but super exciting. It was a day trip we did. We went to the Crac de Chevalier, this Crusader craft castle near Homs. But the destruction, man, the destruction was so insane. These, like, you were just driving along the road and
it, you know,
here's a city, this is flat.
What a shame, because people like yours, as you're pointing out some of these things, I remember a big eye opener for me was when we went to Turkey, and you start seeing these, you know, people think, oh, well, it's this kind of, you know, historical, this and this, but really that whole area is such a confluence of going back to the days of, you know, even before Alexander, and then Alexander the Great, and Greek civilization, and then the Roman civilization, and then, you know, so many. It's such a rich area, so much. But, you know, it's cool, and I think this is what, like, you've been seeing, is that one of the neat things being in tech is when you're talking people, tech and culture, it takes the you can, if as long as we're mature enough, you can take the politics out and you can connect on those levels and really get to experience each other and connect as people.
Absolutely. And you know, I've made such great friends. I think about early when it was that inflection point of on my way out of Microsoft. I kind of saw it as there's this big wave of the technology. How do I step off that wave and just keep surfing it, but into the community, into the field, and just take this as far as it'll go? You could say that's what I've been doing, is I've just been surfing for the last, hence Oceanside. You know. So
I was going to say my last question: have you learned to physically surf?
I have been surfing. I'm not great at it by any means. I actually got my surfboard from anyway, I went surfing with Heather Newman. Simeon's actually the one who gave me the surfboard. Yeah, incredible. Like, I love being able to just get out in the water. The power of the ocean. Wow. Great exercise.
I grew up on the ocean. If I had my dithers, I'd be in it every day.
Yeah. There you go. Can't wait to get back to it.
I don't blame you. Well, thank you, Joel. This has been awesome. So, if people want to connect with you, learn more about what you're doing, Perficient, any top ones, I know you're going to be sending me some links and things we'll share in the post, but
that's right. I've been doing a series of webinars with Perficient. I just finished a virtual
team summit with Perficient that went really well. We had a full day event. You'll be, if you follow my blog or the Perficient blog, you'll hear more about upcoming webinars and events. The biggest one I'm working on is this big virtual marathon.
That's huge. Yeah.
We've already got 1,700 people registered for it, and we haven't even started marketing it yet.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I've been focused on the speakers and making sure it truly is global. And I'm telling you, the call for speakers is still open till May 1st. So please get your sessions in. We want this to be for the community, by the community, plus SPC muscle behind us.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. So with that wraps up session 2.
Yep. Collabshow.com, travelingepic.com, @ Joel Oleson on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook, find me on LinkedIn. I'm a fairly-ish open LinkedIn connection type person. Yeah. It's a little bit harder on Facebook because of the 5,000 limit, but I love connecting with the community. If you send me a message on Twitter as a DM, I will respond. I want to make myself very accessible to people. Yep. My email even is joel.oleson@perficient.com. Yeah, definitely. Feel free to email me. Feel free to reach out. Happy to connect.
Very cool. Well, thank you for today. And with that, we're going to bid everybody have a great day. I'm going to see if I can find my little control. I got to find out if there is a keystroke sometime for this. Want to thank everybody. We're going to stop our recording, but next time, be sure to check us out on Social Sessions with Mike Gannotti, and from Mike and
Joel 365.
Take care now.